Congress has a 14% approval rate, but they have an 85% retention rate. That doesn't make sense. Why? Because they have their elections fixed in the United States. And when you go to other countries like Nicaragua, Colombia, Peru, Honduras, you see fair elections in front of your face where the transparency is there. Everything happens in the purview of the people. And in those countries in which we say they're like, they're dog and pony elections, pantomime elections is what Joe Biden called the Nicaraguan elections. No, this is ridiculous. We have a complete system where we're operating with no transparency, in the dark, and we have to have blind faith. And they don't have no way to audit the election, so I can't prove it's fixed, but you can't prove it's real.
Okay. Glad to have you. Got pasta Jardula doing the podcast. I love it.
Oh, man, thank you, man. I'm Alex Strenger, right, dude?
Yes, sir. Yes,
Happy to be
sir.
your new friend. Got to meet you at Rebels for a Cause. When you were on my show, man, you blew my mind away.
Did I really?
Yeah. No, it was like, I thought you were just some weird dude running around in a fucking clown suit doing some shit, and then you were like, so damn smart.
I mean, I tried. I microdosed on mushrooms before the episode, and that kind of helped out a lot. And
That's
it was the cheat code.
Yeah.
And
well,
then,
I'll be back in an hour.
okay.
Yeah.
Cool.
I'll figure it out.
All right. Thank
you
you.
got it.
I'm sorry. Yeah, it's been a weird fucking day.
Yeah, I can see it on your face, man. You got stressed. What's the matter?
And usually I'm pretty happy when I do these episodes too. It turns out that the Phoenix wallet, the Lightning custodial wallet, KYC free wallet, is removing their services, removing themselves from like the app stores and like desktops in America because of all this new Biden like going after
sanctions.
Yeah. Bitcoin companies that don't want to KYC their customers.
Yeah. Know your customer, KYC.
Yes, know your customer. AML.
Because some of my audience going to watch this, so we got to tell them what KYC is.
Yeah. So I was trying to move my funds to another wallet, right?
Gotcha.
So first I wanted to go use my cold card and try to like get the cold card, like move money from my cold card to a wallet to see if that works before I send money to the cold card.
Gotcha.
And did everything right, but like the wallet I was using, apparently you got to like run your own node now or update the software or do something because it wasn't letting me sign the transaction.
Got it.
And so I'm like, okay, I'll fix this. Like, there's no rush to fix this. I can fix this later. And so I decided to like move the funds to like a Mutiny wallet, right? And I take like $25 and move that right away. And so then I do another transaction. It's just been pending for like over an hour, and like the money, like the it's a couple $100, right? A couple $100.
Yeah.
Not in the Phoenix account. Shows up as pending, and it's been showing up as pending, not in the account. It hasn't gotten a Mutiny, and this is a Lightning wallet. It should be there immediately.
Yeah.
I think I did like a hybrid transaction, like the first one, which is Bitcoin. It combines Bitcoin and Lightning.
Gotcha.
I think that you can send money to on-chain addresses in Phoenix anyway.
Yep.
But I just feel like I'm just gonna be stuck in this loop, or it's just gonna be pending for like over a day, and it's been a really frustrating experience.
Well, I mean, doesn't that kind of tie into the bigger thing right now? Like, listen, I dumped a lot of my Bitcoin when it was going down, when we had the fall. And the thing about it is I love the idea of Bitcoin. I think it's great. You know what I'm saying? Really, to tell you the truth, a transparent system. I don't know if you heard this the other day. RFK, who once again I will not support him because he's a raging Zionist.
He's not even He's not even as bad as the other. Look, if you want to talk about
he's a raging Zionist.
Pasta. Hold on. Okay.
But wait, can we get to the whole what
the
he said?
Yeah,
really
but
quick?
That's right. That's a good idea.
He put
that's
the money
really
on the blockchain, right?
Well,
transparency. I thought that was fucking awesome. Yeah, it really is great. So he did.
Here's a fun fact, though. When you put U.S. funds on a blockchain, we get to see how the money is spent.
Exactly.
So that means you're not sending ungodly amounts of money to Ukraine and Israel to fund what you think is a genocide.
Yeah.
Whether we agree about Israel being a sovereign state or not, when you put the money on a blockchain, you are not looting the treasury and sending all of your hard-earned money to perpetuate a war that's not designed to be won, but designed to be prolonged indefinitely.
Yeah.
So I actually think that, if you want to actually address the conflict in the Middle East and Ukraine and in Russia, doing that is actually how you address the conflict.
Yeah.
Without even having to pick a side.
Yeah. No, I as far as the idea of transparency, how we spend our money, where it's spent, I'm an election integrity activist, so I'm here at the Minds Festival this weekend to be on the election integrity panel. I have to also be on the. I don't have to be. I chose to be on because they asked me to. Is America turning into a communist country panel?
Well, yes, it is. Look at what's happened.
No, it's not. We are in some technocratic, woke, fascist country. We're a fascist country, not a communist country. Big difference. We're run by the corporations, the oligarchs, the elites, not the state. The state just acts as a mechanism for those oligarchs and stuff like that.
I don't know, man. I think the idea of a 45% capital gains tax and taking away people's right to self-custody of their finances sounds pretty communist to me, man.
Authoritarian. But communism has other traits. Communism really at its whole, and socialism, I'm not a communist, I'm not a socialist, right? Some people say I'm a soft socialist, but I'm not. I look at myself as a leftist libertarian. I do believe that there's some positive stuff that central planning can produce, but I don't believe in any system, whether it be capitalism, communism, that you should have overarching power, right? In other words, anybody can control so much of the interest in any type of system. We live in a capitalist system, and we're in the most censored, most controlled system. Your problems with your shit right now probably are due to the fact that the American banking, no matter what, we have to transfer our money into our fiat money, whether it is to use it, to spend it, to buy that coffee. You can't use Phoenix card. You got to use American dollars.
You theoretically,
so there's a control mechanism.
You
is what I'm saying.
could. People are just choosing not to. And there are ways to work around what's happening. You could de-Google. I'm actually going to meet somebody and hopefully de-Google my phone. And get a Web 5 computer and kind of run my own node and do things like that to make myself more self-sovereign. This is just what happens when you're in the looting the treasury phase. Yeah. But I'm not even anywhere near anybody, but I'm gonna at least try to take those steps.
Yeah. But most people who are plugged into society, who have regular jobs, who depend on those jobs to pay those bills, they won't have that option.
Yeah, well,
we have more of an option to go off the,
They think that Donald Trump is going to save them too.
Yeah, I know, and that's just really crazy shit over there.
Annoying. I can't deal with that.
It's crazy. It's nuts.
It's one of the stupid
Operation Warp Speed guy.
Dude, it's advanced 5D chess. When he locked down the country and made Steve Mnuchin the Treasury Secretary, who actually wanted to create a central bank digital currency for COVID payment. No, he's fighting the deep state. But when RFK picks Nicole Shanahan to be his VP, he's a shill. He's a globalist. Like the hypocrisy. Like I actually like a lot of Trump's support.
You didn't question a lot of her positions though, somewhat. I mean, I think they're.
No more so than
criticisms,
Mike.
Right?
No more so than Mike. I'm not like an RFK ride or die fan where I'm like he's gonna solve my
201,
problems.
I mean, this woman's connected to it. I mean, listen, I do love a lot of other things about her. The more you learn about her, the more you do like her and stuff. But I do believe that RFK is compromised. I don't believe he is wrong about Israel. I believe he is compromised when it comes to Israel. Right?
Why do you think he's compromised?
Because I believe he's too smart to spew the bullshit rhetoric he spews about how the state of Israel was created, what happened with their wars. Okay, it's just, listen, and one time or another, as American citizens, we had to realize that the empire education we were taught in school was programming. We were lied to.
Well, yes.
So do a lot of people who go to Hebrew school, which is pretty much Zionist school. They have to understand that they're being taught a bunch of pack of lies.
I mean,
they are. Kinda. They have, kind of.
Like, okay.
The Nakba is real, man. I mean, it happened.
Well, there was a lot of other stuff preceding that. And
absolutely.
There was a lot of stuff preceding that, like, the idea of having 67 borders in Israel is a valid concern. There is somewhat of an unholy alliance that I can't really connect the dots with like AIPAC and like Raytheon and Boeing and some of these other companies. Like that is, I think in order to like be able to have a conversation about this and like create a situation where Jews and Arabs live side by side, or you create a two-state solution that is
but they already live side by side, right?
Sort of.
Okay.
In order to actually create that, there should be a willingness to like come to terms with the fact that like, yo, man, don't go to war in Iran. We shouldn't be creating hate speech laws. The way that these protesters are being treated by APD is not something that we should be glorifying. Even though I don't like the protesters and I think they're absolutely retarded, like you don't need to. They don't just. They like their actions are not worthy of physical violence, right? The response to that is not worthy of physical.
I know because they're a bunch of woke. I mean, 75% of them. They're like, listen, I went to those protests.
They're trust fund babies.
They are, and they're wearing their mask outside. And I saw your episode, and I thought it was ridiculous. I thought it was crazy. And listen, here's the thing. Like, I was one of those guys who was a leftist. Whatever you want to call me, old school. I don't like to put myself in the box. I'm all over the place. But, I was one of the few, like Kim Iverson, Fiorella Isabella, that were like, no, this COVID thing is bullshit. We're not playing it. You shouldn't be listening to these people. Why are you going to trust Johnson & Johnson now after we've spent all this time? Because as a Bernie Sanders person, the number one issue was Medicare for all. And we were marching against the pharmaceutical lobbyists. They've turned around and bent the knee to them. So when I showed up at some of the Palestinian rallies, and even though I'm for the cause, I'm not pro-Palestinian, I'm not anti-Jew, I'm anti-death. I think it's a genocide and ethnic cleansing going on, and I just want the bombing to stop, right? Start there. But either way, those people would see me and they're like, oh, he's anti-COVID, that guy. He's anti-vaccine over there. They would like look at me. And a lot of people would say, oh, they're wearing masks so the AI doesn't get them. I'm like, no, they're wearing masks outside because they believe in this bullshit and the rhetoric. And that's the majority of those people at those protests. And that's the crazy thing. Because even though I believe in the cause, half those people, 75% of those people are like, you guys are fucking nuts. Why are you wearing your mask outside?
Well, there's also another problem, like just like some of the people who've been a little bit brainwashed by the Hebrew school education, as you like to say, aren't willing to compromise on anything. A lot of these people are also super extreme and not willing to compromise on anything. You go up and ask these people, hey, do you think Hamas is a terrorist organization? And they will tell you that they're not a terrorist organization, or they'll walk away from you. They won't say anything. Whereas you talk to Arabs who are from the region, people who are from Palestine, okay, people who have Palestinian family will be like, every single Arab person that I've spoken to, I'm like, hey, man, listen, I don't like Netanyahu. I don't like what he's doing, right? It's not like you shouldn't be carpet bombing these people into oblivion, like becoming George Bush 2.0 during this whole crisis and launching a hot war with Iran that we're going to have to get into. It's a terrible idea. I don't want to do that, right? I'm just setting the record. That being said, how do you feel about Hamas? Do you think they're a terrorist or do you think they're also part of the problem? And you know what a lot of them say? Yeah, they are a problem. They do not represent our values. They're not Islam. They are hurting us. So it's very interesting how the Arabs who have family and lineage in those countries that are in America will openly tell Hamas to go fuck off, right? And not have a problem with that. But the white hipster woke trust fund kids are the ones that call them heroes and martyrs and freedom fighters, and these are the people, Pasta, who are actually leading and controlling these Free Palestine movements. These Free Palestine movements are
okay. Let's
about
talk about
freeing
that.
Palestine, as though on the same lens as the Black Lives Matter protests were about helping black people.
Okay, yeah, and we understand the people who kind of, were in charge of the Black Lives Matter rallies. Some of them were great. Some of them, like Patrisse Cullors, was embezzling the money. There were a bunch of Black Lives Matter local groups that broke off from national because they were sick and tired of what they were doing. So there's a lot of nuance and context when it comes to that too as well. Okay. I'm going to disagree with you when it comes to how the majority of Palestinians do feel about the Al-Qassam Brigade, how they do feel about Hamas. They feel, a lot of them, especially the ones that were in the Gaza Strip, feel that they are freedom fighters, right? And at the end of the day, we can sit here and argue, is Israel a terrorist organization when they have stuff like the Dahaya Doctrine, which means they can carpet bomb the place. They call it mowing the lawn, that they justify bombing these buildings because they say Hamas is using them, so they justify killing children and women and children. You can argue that they are a terrorist organization. What's happened there is happened there. We shouldn't spend so much time splitting hairs and saying, okay, we have to look at Hamas. Hamas is bad. First of all, Israel created Hamas.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you. Well, and we fund ISIS, and when people say, "Oh, they're not a terrorist organization," I'm like, no, they are, because we fund them, and we don't fund good people. But the fact of the matter is, you're never gonna get peace. You're never gonna stop what's happening right now if they don't have a new government in Gaza, and that government cannot make it so that the Israeli people feel as though their lives are
That's not for us to decide. That's for those people to decide. We can't do that, especially when we backed entities like Hamas, when we spent money there. Remember, we wanted to crush the PLO. Yasser Arafat and his secular government. The Israelis wanted to crush them and have a more jihadist group so they can justify everything they're doing.
Yes.
You can't create something and then blame the thing that you created. No, you created it.
I know, but you still gotta get rid of it. It's still bad. You created a monster beyond control, and Netanyahu's
no way.
And he helped
the
create
monster
that monster,
is Israel.
Netanyahu's gotta
the
go.
monster is Israel. When you look at the scoreboard and see how many Israelis Hamas has killed, and you look at the scoreboard and see how many Israelis have killed Hamas members or Palestinians, and here's the thing: then they just claim everybody's Hamas and arrest them. No. I'm sorry. The country that is wrong in this situation.
You also literally just said, Pasta, that a lot of Palestinians and people who live in Palestine support Hamas and see them as freedom fighters, and then
because they have no other choice.
I know, but when you have that, okay, I'm not.
And who would you support? Really question. Just hold on your thought, but let me ask you a question. If you lived in Gaza and you were an Arab, if you were a Muslim, and would you support Israel when they've constantly oppressed your people, or the group that's going to say, we're going to help you no matter what? I think it's like 70% of Israeli men from Gaza end up sometime in prison. There's a lot of kids that go in there and whatnot.
But then you're
gonna support them.
Flip that around and say, okay, well, if you're a Jew and you have family that grew up in Israel and you have people that died in the Holocaust, not to use it as a crutch, but just this is like another factor. Who are you going to support, right? It all is based on the circumstances of how you.
I get it. I get that. Yeah.
That is not something you can just unprogram right off the bat, right? And I don't even know that necessarily, like, you know, if you read the Torah, like it's openly in the Torah, like that, you know, Israel is a Jewish homeland. Doesn't mean that you hold on. It doesn't mean that you just throw people off their land and not let. Well, I also know that a little bit more of the history about this too.
I know, but
let me finish.
No, but
let me finish.
The Torah, Israel's religion forbids them from having their own homeland. Sephardic Jews talk about, Hasidic Jews talk about this all the time. It's almost forbidden for them to have their homeland. That's why there's so many Hasidic Jews that support Palestine.
That's a very small percentage, but their broadcast is very
decent sized percentage, and we're seeing a lot of Jewish people now.
Listen, I don't think that anti-Zionism is anti-Semitism. I just want
I know.
Okay,
dude, I know. That's why I love you, brother.
I just want to clarify that. Like,
You're smart.
There are people who have different viewpoints, but a lot of people don't, and it's okay to, like, you know, feel a connection to that land and want to be able to have the right to live there and settle there, especially in the face of persecution and a lot of this rhetoric that led to persecution. You know, a lot of bad German logic and bad German ideals are making a comeback, and that is very obvious. And a lot of what you're seeing right now is only going to create more Zionism and create more people to want to go to Israel.
Okay. Well, let's be honest, and I'm going to ask you this question: Are the Jews that are controlling Israel right now, the state of Israel, are the majority of them, are they Sephardic Jews or are they Ashkenazi Jews? I would even bet, and I haven't been to Israel, from everything I've heard and the people who go there and do some reporting, the majority of the Jews that control and live in fucking Israel are from Brooklyn, New York. They're not even from that area. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't make a difference. If you're going to have a conflict, you got to find a way to coexist peacefully.
Listen, I want to actually book a flight.
I
actually want to go there and experience it for like 10 days for myself and talk to people and see what's going on.
Why don't we start a fundraiser? Me and you will go. We'll go to West Bank for 10 days. I got connections there, so yeah.
Let's go. I mean, would I be...
We got to wipe our Twitters. I have to wipe my Twitter clean because if they get a hold of it and they check your phones and they're crazy and stuff, the IDF, and they won't let you do anything. But they'll let us go and check it out and stuff. But if they see this podcast, they won't let me go. So they don't want anybody anti-Israel, you know, anti-Zionist or going into those areas. But I mean, listen, Fiorella just went to the West Bank, so you can go there.
Am I allowed? Like, as someone who's a Jew, am I allowed? Okay, I want to go and I want to film it. I want to talk to everybody and get a clear perspective on this. I think that it's a very complicated issue.
Yeah.
It's an extremely complicated issue that's been going on for not for thousands of years, right? Because you had diasporas, you had different entities settling in that region, but it's a conflict that's been going on for like the past 100 years. Both sides. I listened to the Martyr Made podcast. I listened to Daryl Cooper. I listened to Scott Horton. I like those people, right?
Yeah. Love Scott Horton.
Yeah, I had him on. These people know a lot more about this than I do. They have a lot more time to read and study this stuff.
Yeah.
I listened to the Dave Smith Zero Hedge debate. All of this stuff is
with
like
Laura, the second one.
The second one.
Okay.
With Shank and yeah. These are valid. Like the
Destiny was on that thing, wasn't he?
No, he wasn't.
On that one,
I don't think so. No. But like the look, there are valid criticisms.
Yeah.
Okay. They like, and the way in which they went about taking land, like settling in that region in like the 1920s when when they would buy the land for like really cheap and buy these people out without really telling these people that they navigated within a bureaucracy, whereas the Arab leaders had an honor culture and they totally exploited the Arabs having an honor culture, and then a lot of Arab farmers and people who lived on that land for a long time just got thrown off their land for no reason, and then because they wanted to populate that area with Jews, they refused to like hire Arabs to work on the land, and then the Arabs were stuck being kind of homeless and living in like these shanty towns, like, and then they policed a lot of that stuff, and the only people that they listened to were the imams, and then as a result, that's how you become super fundamentalist. But this did happen, and as a result of this happening for like 100+ years, now you have a problem that's gotta get solved somehow. I know that during the Mebby Musa riots, a lot of it was really bad, and they, you don't justify that at all. But a lot of people don't know that there were a large number of Arabs who actually housed and protected Jews while they were being attacked in those riots. So I think the idea of hating Arabs and the idea of like blaming radical Islam and doing all that stuff, right? Yeah. Or being anti-Arab or anti-Muslim is counterproductive. It's the wrong approach. But there still also is a huge radical element that does control this population, and it needs to get addressed if you're gonna have peace, regardless of who helped facilitate and precipitate this. If this doesn't get addressed, and you're not talking about how that issue is a problem, then you're not serious.
Well,
about
I think
then like the people who talk about ceasefire are not actually serious about a ceasefire, and it's more about imposing their will on people versus actually creating a ceasefire.
Absolutely.
That's what I'm saying.
And let me just say this much. I don't know who that is. Somebody says, tell Alex this and this and that. He's helping me out with this thing here. We're not even live. Somebody's calling me and texting me like, don't let Alex get that position on you. No, I'm making around.
Wow, all right.
No, but all right, listen. Well, first off, I would just say that I think that whole addressing that starts at peace. It does start with the ceasefire. Really, it does. We have to stop the bombing of the kids and whatnot and everything that's going on. And really, to tell you to me, everything they've been doing, what it looks like to me, what I've been seeing is that they really don't want to go after Hamas. They don't want to get rid of Hamas. They don't want to eradicate Hamas. It seems to me that they want to ethnically cleanse and they want the land. That's what I feel like more than anything. We can argue and debate that. But here's something I just want to agree with you on before you.
Okay.
Let me just say this because this is very important, because this is why when I see you out there doing those interviews, when you came on to my show, the place that I think that we have an alliance on or we agree on strongly is when people say, does Israel have the right to exist? What difference is that's a stupid question, right? It exists whether we think it has a right to. Does America have a right to exist with all the Indians we killed and stuff like that? No matter what, we have to solve the problem now moving forward.
Yes.
And we know we're not going to just take a bunch of freaking people, Jewish people who are living in Israel, and throw them out. Even though people says, well, why? They did that to them. Two wrongs don't make a right.
Yes.
Let's find a way to do that. But here's the thing that has to stop. Number one, the ceasefire has to stop. The bombing needs to just stop immediately. And I'm so sorry. Israel is the major aggressor in this one. Number two, the colonizing, the occupations, the throwing the Arabs out of their house in the West Bank right now, where Hamas doesn't even exist, and they're having the same brutal freaking treatment. Kids are getting arrested. Palestinian kids are getting arrested. People are thrown out of the house. That has to stop immediately. It all has to stop immediately, and then we can work our way with a solution. But we have to have every party that's willing and involved to make a solution. And I do believe there's entities in the leadership of Hamas that are benefiting off the war continuing to go on. I do believe that happens.
I got to learn and brush up a little bit more on what's going on in the West Bank.
We got to go.
Right? I don't think the settlements are a good idea. I think if you talk to a lot of Jews in Israel, don't think the settlements are a good idea. I think a lot of these issues are very very polarizing.
Yeah.
And there's a wide range of viewpoints of people who live there. The leaders of Hamas, they live in luxury villas in Qatar. Okay, they get a ton of UN funding. The amount of funding that they've received over the course of these past couple decades.
Yeah. Does Netanyahu got a nice house? How much? Hold on. But why do we hit these points that they're whatever they're at, they're the leaders and stuff? I mean, they just bomb one of the Hamas leaders.
Yeah, but
kids,
the quality of life. Okay. Here's my counter argument. Okay. The quality of life of Jews of Israelis is far superior to the quality of life of everyday people who are living in Palestine. Yeah. And the Palestinian government and Hamas and Ishmael Haniyeh and all those people, they get a lot of money from the UN. These people are multi-billionaires. They're on the top 10 richest people in America, or top 100 richest people in America on Forbes. A lot of that money does get used to produce rockets, weapons, all this stuff. It's not propaganda. That actually is a problem. I want the West Bank and Gaza to turn into a Dubai. Right, I would love for them to be a prosperous, thriving country. That would make me so happy. I have family that live out in Israel. Right, do you think I want this tension to continue heating up? I have family friends who live there. That actually does put their lives at risk. You want to know something else? The more Israel, the more people feel as though this is a war of unbridled aggression. You know what happens? You start losing allies in the Middle East. You lose allies at you know why? When Iran struck Israel, you know why nothing happened? Right? Why 99% of
you mean when they retaliated against Israel?
Who cares? Whatever. Fine, they retaliated. Well, whatever. Fine. Okay. When
it's a very big thing,
striking a military base and just indiscriminately launching airstrikes on a population are a little bit different, but. Regardless.
Than what Israel did?
Yeah. This is on a military base, I think.
Yeah. But, they hit a military base. Israel hit
a military base.
Israel hit a fucking embassy, which is off limits. You don't hit embassies. You hit an embassy. You hit an Iranian embassy in Syria. That's off limits. Julian Assange was held in the freaking Ecuadorian embassy in England for 8 years, 9 years. They wouldn't go in and get him because there's a sacred line. You don't mess with embassies.
Okay.
It's off limits.
I thought it was a military base, but if it's
no,
an embassy,
Israel bombed an embassy, killed 2 Iranian generals, about 12 other officers there.
Irregardless, okay?
Gotcha.
Irregardless.
You know that's not a word, regardless.
Regardless, yeah, I know. That
And
was
Martin
the
Luther King used the
post
word
that-
irregardless.
okay.
Irregardless of our race and our color. He said,
Okay. Regardless
Gotcha.
regardless
I like
of,
irregardless.
Yeah. All right. Regardless of that,
Yes.
99% of these attacks didn't do anything to Israel, right? Like Israel was
It just
for the most
destroyed
part-
the base.
But like the Iron Dome shut it down. Like shut a lot of the stuff
Some
down.
of it.
Saudi
Some of it. They
Arabia-
had
Saudi Arabia,
some missiles
But-
coming off missiles. And it was like,
Okay, but what
see
I'm
what we
saying-
can do.
What I'm saying though is that like Israel was largely unscathed, and it's not just because of the Iron Dome, but it's because of Saudi Arabia, because of Jordan, because of other countries in the Middle East that
Because the United States,
but they
1.3
helped.
billion, right?
Hold on, they helped Israel thwart this. If they didn't help Israel thwart this, you would have a full-scale response in Iran that we would be potentially dragged into. That being said, the more people feel as though an unbridled a campaign of aggression takes place, I'm not stupid, but the clock runs out for when Jordan and Saudi Arabia and your other Arab neighbors that at first wanted you eliminated are now helping you. That could easily change if they get newer, more radicalized governments. The more people feel as though as this is happening unchanged, the more you're going to get those radicalized governments. As you also have a huge migration problem in Europe. A lot of these are Muslims and Arabs. Israel's worried about whatever. Fine, displaced, but this is what it is. Okay, this is what it is. Right now Israel's worried about attacks from Hamas and they're worried about Iran and they're worried about all this stuff. But guess what, man? Like with the large influx of Islamic migrants coming into Europe, you're gonna have to worry about getting airstrikes from France launched at you. So I do think that for somebody that is pro-Israel and wants Israel to exist as a sovereign country, unbridled aggression is probably the last thing that you should do if you have a long-term viewpoint on this.
Yeah. Well,
that's kind of what I'm trying to say.
Gotcha. And don't get too fired up because I want to continue to do these shows with you.
They're
man.
fun. These are fun.
I love working. I really love working with Alex. Right? It's like one of my newest favorite guys. I'm so glad I went to Rebels for a Cause. When I first met you, I'm just like, who the fuck is this clown, dude? This guy's like. Not that I just thought you were weird. I thought you were like a weird genius. Like he's like, this guy's like super smart. He's super deep. I'm trying to get what he's trying to do. When you were explaining the clown thing, and I'm like, I don't.
Well, you got to imitate these people as to who they are, so people can see what's happening. It's just
I didn't get it at first.
Make it very viscerally obvious as to what you're.
I know it went over my head, and I'm like, this guy's
obvious.
too fucking like this guy's deep over here. This dude's in the fucking Matrix. And then you came on my show, like I said. But all right, so listen. I think that right now Israel is moving away from a point in which they could have had a state and coexisted and not continue to expand. If they would have had some form of a government that used to resemble what the people were like years ago. In other words, they've programmed and trained most of their people to think that all Muslims are terrorists. You see people go there all the time. This is some work that Dan Cohen has done, Max Blumenthal, guys who've gone into that region and gotten a microphone over. That guy's a terrorist just because he's an Arab. It's an Arab 14-year-old kid on a bike. He's a terrorist. They're programmed to do that. Israel has changed. They used to have more old school leftist liberals who wanted to figure out a way to coexist peacefully. They've pretty much got shunned. Right now, they're moving past a point where they could have that. And there's no one else to blame but the state of Israel themselves.
Well, I don't
Because they're
know.
getting a little bit too aggressive, even to the point where the Chinese are at the UN and saying, you need to stop this shit. And here's the thing. You can't go over and start attacking Iran like crazy and whatnot. They're now tied to Russia and China like ever before, and they're not going to sit back anymore. And quite frankly, let me finish up.
Okay, sure.
The Chinese and the Russians are done. They own a lot of the resources. They understand they have BRICS. They don't need the United States. They don't need Israel's way anymore. So they're pushing those boundaries. The Moscow massacre that happened had American fingerprints all over it. ISIS-K was created by America. It was funded by Ukrainians. Anything funded by Ukrainians is funded by the United States. Pretty soon, you know that F around and find out. Yeah. Israel and the United States need to back the hell off because they're putting us all in danger right now. We might be safe because we're behind the gun now, but these people are going way too far, including Israel.
That's a lot to unpack. Do you know what the ratio of like civilian casualties to like military casualties are in that region for Israel? Because I heard, and I could be wrong, and it's very tough to trust statistics coming out from any government or any entity.
Yeah.
But I heard, and I just from friends I know who live in Israel, that like the ratio of soldiers to civilians that wind up getting killed in this is actually like one of the better, like one of the
That's wrong. That's false. Because an Israeli military ministry guy came on. This is about 4 months ago when I watched it, and he gave the best case scenario, and that was like 10 times worse than anything that we have ever seen until we started using drone warfare. No, he said it was something like 5-1 of civilians towards Hamas militants, and I thought that was a bullshit because I'd never seen Hamas militants in uniform or anything.
What's the
with
ratio
weapons?
of like civilians to militants that we've killed when we've gone in other regions? Like it's still a lot better than like compared to like how we've
it's gotten worse
compared to how we've operated in these areas.
But we haven't operated the best. We're the only country that
people hate us.
Dropped fucking atomic bombs on Tuesday. Two atomic bombs on civilians.
It's actually ridiculous.
We're not supposed to be setting the bar.
I think it's ridiculous that people are actually justifying this as necessary.
Save lives, Alex. It saved lives.
Although my grandfather was stationed in World War II, and he was going to go into the Philippines.
Yeah.
And if they had not dropped that bomb, my grandfather would have probably died.
I don't know. The Japanese were ready to. I know we were told that, but as we researched that stuff, the Japanese were ready to surrender. It was about the American elites making sure they sent the message to Russia, because Russia was already working on getting Sputnik in the air and trying to work on the space program. And eventually
they were worried about the Germans creating something like this.
But we got the Germans. Yeah. We got all their scientists. You paperclip, right? We've talked about this.
You want to know something crazy?
They went to work for us.
Well, people think the Nazis lost World War II, but they just moved to America and headed up our agencies. And then Hitler's still alive in Argentina.
Probably
a lot. I've heard this from a lot of accounts.
Yeah.
Because nobody ever found the body.
Yeah, there's just Osama bin Laden, Jeffrey Epstein. These guys can all be kicking.
And then a lot of these people that are going to Davos and operating things, actually still have ties and lineage to prominent Nazi organizations.
Yeah.
Which is why it's so crazy when everyone complains about, hey, the Jews are running this and the Jews are doing that, and I'm just like, actually, look, man, we do pretty well in life, and we wind up in pretty high ranking positions. But you really want to know the truth. It's actually it's actual Nazis that are still running this, and a lot of the ideology that we're framed upon right now is an offroot of Nazism and bad German ideology from the 1930s, and it never died. And a lot of these American oligarchs who funded Adolf Hitler and funded these Nazis, they wound up creating the UN, they wound up creating our intelligence agencies, they dictate how we go about doing things in the school, and then this brainwashing pattern literally manifested itself in terms of the fact that we forgot that we lived in America as a result of a cold.
Yeah.
So if people really want to know the truth, it's actual Nazism that's the real problem, and not.
Yeah. It's fascism. At any way you look at it, if it's
but they were connected to Nazis. Like they were actual These are people that actually have connections to Nazi ideology. The Minister of Finance in Canada, Chrystia Freeland, her dad or her grandfather was like a Nazi. They were openly clapping for a Ukrainian who served with the Nazis in the Canadian Parliament.
I know. It's crazy. I mean, that was nuts.
He fought against the Russians in the 1940s. I'm like, oh, this is who we're clapping for now.
I just believe it's a form of authoritarianism, right? It's not really about Jewish people controlling anything or Nazis controlling anything. It's not really an ideology. It's a face. It's a mechanism in which a smaller group of people are going to control the masses by using any type of ism necessary to get what they want. Yes. That's all it is. They want control. They want to control all the resources. They're fucking mentally crazy, self-narcissist, whatever. They can believe they can use children as currency at this point in life, and they've proven this now. I mean, it's just that, it's a group of small people controlling a bunch of other people, and that's simply what it is. It's globalism, really, I think that's the bigger problem than any fascism, capitalism.
The Nazis are the biggest globalists. They literally wanted to try to control the world and take over it, and they were using a lot of advanced technology and a lot of experimentation on people and a lot of the stuff is being used today, but it's just being
we use their work.
It's being softly sold instead of being forced onto people. Well, that's literally what's happening.
I know, because the social engineers have caught up to society. They understand how they can brainwash people, program people to fucking listen. They got people to quarantine in their house without putting a tank on the street. These people know what the fuck they're doing at this point right now.
Yeah,
they know their audience.
If you can get people to voluntarily consent to fascism, you're going to get fascism. And that's why it's important to just wake people up and do it in a way that's palatable, because if people are using humor and they feel good about being woken up, they don't comply. If people feel like they're being lectured and the guy's angry all the time, nobody wants to be around an angry person. I don't even want to be on Twitter as much anymore, because all I see is anger and rage and engagement farming. It's people tweeting in all caps. It's so annoying. It's aggravating. And I get bombarded with messages from people I'm friends with talking about, like, Christ is king, the Jews did this, and that. And I'm like, dude, you realize you're just making me want to move to Israel. Like, this is really exhausting. Like, it's exhausting. Like, I don't want to play this game with you. This is not, I've not changed anything. I've always had these viewpoints. Nothing about me has ever changed as a result of this. I've always had these views. I just didn't like openly talk about it as much because it wasn't necessary to the topic at hand. But I've always had those views. Like I've always.
Yeah. Well, I didn't always talk about it because it wasn't
necessary. It wasn't relevant.
Well, it wasn't politically and financially advantageous. Like I didn't want to get myself taken down. I didn't want to get stuff shut down. You know what I'm saying? I mean, you can't deny. I mean, we say about it, it's Nazism, but our whole Congress, the people who make the laws, they got dual citizenship with Israel, right? And they care about Israel more.
How do you even get dual citizenship?
I don't know. You just if you're Jewish, you just got to apply through the consulate, I guess.
But you still have to like have military service and do things to get dual citizenship. Like there's
I
things you got to do to like.
I think you can get it at a later age. That if you apply for it, I don't know exactly how, but
I would apply for dual citizenship. I mean, you're gonna.
I don't think you have to necessarily work for the IDF if you're an American citizen.
I would apply for dual citizenship.
Yeah.
Well, look, man.
What if they said you had to go join the IDF?
Yeah, fuck it. Yeah, you should listen. If
Come
you're
on.
Yeah, I would do it.
Why?
I would actually do it. Yeah.
All wars are bankers' wars. All wars are rich man's wars fought by fucking poor people.
Listen,
why would you go spill blood for those assholes?
If you're gonna have to live in a foreign country and do what everybody else did to live in that foreign country, you should still.
Even if it was wrong.
I don't know, man. I think that's a different discussion. I'm not fighting. I'm not going in America, invading another country. Like if you go into that area, you like there actually is a justifiable means of self-preservation when you live in that region. Despite whether or not you agree with why they're there, as a result of the circumstances, there still is a justifiable reason and means for self-preservation. Also, here's the thing too: a lot of these other people that are advocating unilaterally for Israel to respond and nothing they do is wrong, and those people, those people, the Ben Shapiros, lack of a better word, they're not going to fight.
No.
Yeah, at least if I'm going to have a stance. Yeah, if you're gonna have a stance, you better at least fight. If you're gonna have a stance, you don't just sit behind a keyboard yelling and talking about things. I don't want it to get to that point. That's why I'm trying to talk about I'm trying to have nuanced discussions and share my viewpoints and hope that this gets solved. So that you don't have to do this. But man, if I were to actually feel worst case scenario that a place like Israel wouldn't exist as a viable backup plan, And that was a real actual risk. Yeah, I actually would, man.
What's your ethnicity?
I mean, we're Russian Jews, man.
You're Russian?
Yeah.
So why wouldn't you apply for dual citizenship for Russia?
Because they wouldn't allow me because my mom is from Ukraine. My mom and I talked about this, actually.
Yeah.
My mom maybe I'm wrong, right?
Yeah.
But I was like, Mom, I want to go to Russia and film and see what's going on there. And she's like, they would arrest you on the spot just because I'm from Ukraine and we have family in Ukraine. Like, that's what my mom told me. I don't know if it's true or not, but
it's not true. It's not true. I know a lot of friends from Ukraine and people who go to Russia all the time and stuff like that are from Ukraine originally and stuff. You know what I'm saying? It's not like that. No, if anything, the Russians wanted Ukraine to be its own sovereign state. Putin for 8 years worked the Minsk Accords with the Russian Federation because he wanted the Donbass to be part of Ukraine. He didn't want to manage it. People don't understand this when it comes to like a lot of communism regimes or the old Soviet Union. They got rid of those territories because they didn't want to manage them. They didn't want to have to pay for them. It's a lot of work. They were like, you fucking do it. We'll be your ally. You need us. Call us. Same thing with Ukraine. The Russian Federation and Vladimir Putin did not want to take the Donbass. They worked for 8 years in the Minsk Accords to try to get Ukraine to come to some agreement where they would stop bombing these ethnic Russians. They wouldn't let the Azov battalion. They would have free and fair elections because, once again, it was a puppet government overturned by our will. Victoria Nuland, Jeffrey Pyatt, handing out cookies on the Maidan. Joe Biden, give the attaboy. So much carpetbagging and corruption there. No. The Russians looked at the Ukrainians as their brothers and sisters. They just understand that the Americans came in and twisted everything. It's not like they see Ukrainians. Listen, let's arrest them on the site. That's not true.
I want to go and do this.
I'm supposed to go to Russia in May, but I don't know if it's going to happen right now because there's so much shit going on. I was supposed to go for the election. I was supposed to go into the Donbass. I was supposed to go to Donetsk. I didn't get a chance to go because the foreign ministry said no because our embassy in Moscow issued a warning. Okay. And they told people, don't go into big crowds, don't go into parades, don't go into concert halls. And there was a fucking massacre in a concert hall.
Dude, that is kind of crazy too, man.
Well, because it's America, right? And we keep doing this shit. Our oligarchs, they're putting us all in danger right now. They've gone over remember the Big Lebowski? Over the line! Way over the line, Alex. That's what's going on right now. And they got to fucking stop. These guys who are running shit are psychopaths. They keep expanding the empire. We now have over 1,000 bases in the world. We have over 100 bases in Latin America. Why do you think these people are still coming all the time? We talk about this all the time. We keep it expanding, trying to steal resources, causing chaos.
This on your show.
We got to stop this shit. We don't need to. We should spend the money here at home.
Yeah.
Spend the money here with us.
I agree.
The fake money we print anyways, let's spend it on us.
Yeah, part of spending the money here at home also means having a border that's secure so that we focus on what's happening here.
If you don't have bases in Guatemala, if you don't have bases on Honduras, and these are bases, the bases on Honduras I saw, 1,500 troops. They're not the Boy Scouts over there.
Yeah, but dude, this is going to
If you don't steal other people's resources, if you don't extract it for them, they're not going to come, Alex.
I know,
not
but
by the
this is
droves.
still, yeah, but you can't do everything at once, and at least the first step.
That's the first step.
No, we should close our own borders the first step.
No, if you close those borders, people coming here won't come here. 75% of them are going to stay home. They send their money home anyways, a lot of them, when they get here, so they can go back there and retire like a king. If we don't force the monetary system on them, the IMF loans, if we don't steal their resources, set up the bases, they're not going to come here. That's the first step. That's the first. But we might differ, but that's. And then, hey, and I said this: if you do that,
on your show, and I think I explained myself pretty succinctly.
You did great. You did great. But this is part two. And I said this before, right? If you close the bases, if you stop extracting the wealth and stealing like Don DeBar said, people are coming here, they're following their shit here, and they're hoping to get a little trickle down when they get over here because it's coming from their country, right?
Yeah.
If you close all that stuff, I'll give you a border with sharks and lasers on it. Right? Was that the Austin Power? I want sharks with lasers.
Sharks with lasers.
I'll give you whatever. I'll give you the biggest secure border in the world right now. You could fucking set it up like Fort Knox, and everybody who comes through, you can watch. If you close the bases, you won't even need that strong of a border because 75% of those people won't even come. And I'll make that compromise. If I was the leader of the world, me, Alex and Pasta ruling the world, you close the bases, I'll give you the biggest border you want.
Neither Trump or Biden are going to do this.
They're not going to because it's not them who's exacerbating it. It's the oligarchs and the elites who want that cheap labor to come in here, who want that destabilization. And there is a bigger plan to break the family up, to fucking integrate people. I mean, the UN is exacerbating the whole situation, right?
That's a whole other topic, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very obvious what's happening. Like, drag queens and going into the schools is just the tip of the iceberg.
Ridiculous. I don't condone that shit.
No,
I'm as left as can be, right?
It's a terrible idea.
Like, I wasn't allowed to talk about sex in school. Like, you have a gay flag. Am I allowed to have a flag of a silhouette of a guy doing doggy style on a girl? I mean, can I have that flag? I mean, you're talking about who you want to have sex with over here. That doesn't belong in schools. That belongs at home. But once again, we make the family is now unstable because they got to work 19 jobs just to pay the bills and get a roof over the head. So they're crushing the family in every way.
A lot of this happens after 1971 when we went off gold. They also made abortion legal right after that too, because they know that they knew what was going to happen with inflation. They knew that they were going to need a greater tax revenue. They knew that the food was going to get degraded. People who have a stable foundation and structure behind them are a lot less likely to comply and a lot more likely to revolt against this. They've seen what happened in the past when they tried to implement central banking and when they've had inflation and whatnot. And so they got a step ahead of this, and they decided, hey, we're going to control the revolution. And they warmed this up in the 1960s with the hippies. And a lot of the hippies, they came out and they were like, no, we're rebelling against the establishment, man, the nuclear family. We're rebelling against it's oppressive, man. Free love. And guess what? Those free love guys later became your modern feminists who pushed for abortion. They were the people that like perpetuated the hookup culture. It created the influx of the single moms. It's a KGB style demoralization tactic that actually took place in the 1960s when they started doing this with like when they were giving LSD to college students and making these like the first internet, like the ARPANET and stuff like that. There's like all this shit is tied in on a really and some.
I love the way though. By the way, you slipped that KGB fucking reference in there.
It is a KGB, but it is a KGB. Like Yuri Bezmenov.
CIA, it's a CIA.
Cares? It's an intelligence.
It's an intelligence. I know. I hear you, but once again,
who cares?
All right,
Fine.
I know.
I
got you.
It doesn't matter what word we use. It's the same. It means the same thing.
But see, I always look inward. I always say I'm going to clean my own house first. So I always blame what comes out of my country and where I live and what I represent first before I point fingers at everybody else.
It's hard to clean your house when it keeps flooding.
Oh yeah, I hear you. But
you have to like you can't clean your house if there's a hole in the foundation and water keeps pouring into the foundation repeatedly. And this
but
the majority of the people, equivalent of water continually pouring into the foundation of your house.
And the whole thing is that a lot of people in this country, they don't, the party of individual responsibility, which is supposed to be the populist, right, the conservatives now, they blame China and Russia for all their problems. Well, the Republicans are blaming China. And the Democrats are blaming Russia.
No, that's the mainstream. But like most people
it seeps in. A lot of people blame communism in China for what's going on in this country, and that's
they're also blaming Jews too. And they're blaming Jews now. Now we're blaming Jews, right?
Everybody's blaming everybody. The CIA has got exactly what they want because I believe that they're at the top of the fucking snake. But listen, I want to point something out too as well. When you're talking about a population that's easy to control, keep them drugged up, keep them medicated. That's also another thing.
Yeah.
What really bothers me, what's crazy right now, is when you see a lot of people pointing to the cartels and China for the fentanyl problem. No. Who's the problem here? It's Big Pharma. They made and created the customers. You have to create the customers. They got people addicted to opioids, Adderall, all this shit, stimulants, whatnot. And now they're out there looking for this stuff. So now it's here. You know what I'm saying? And first of all, the cartels are run by the CIA. The CIA controls the cartels. Unless something has happened since Iran-Contra, where they showed us it was the CIA funding all this stuff to get all the cocaine in here to turn it to crack, freeway Rick Ross in L.A., get it out into the streets, get that money, give it back to the CIA to buy guns, to fund coups, to fund the most radical groups like the Contras. The CIA controls the cartels. They've been controlling the cartels for so long. So why aren't we looking at Langley for this problem when it comes to the cartels? We want to actually go into Mexico? This is some crazy shit. And it's all, once again, it's part of the mechanism. Let's keep everybody drugged up so they're easy to control, and then we can blame somebody else and spend money in the military going in there to fucking take care of them. It's a fucking cycle, bro. It's terrible.
Yeah, well, anyway, this whole border stuff and everything like that is also going to possibly create another terrorist attack that could wind up occurring every day. You know, that'll say, hey, look, we need to pass these hate speech laws. We need to ban illicit financial transactions. We need to bring back the Restrict Act and do all
more
this other
crypto.
shit. Yeah, they're like all this stuff is very obviously being used to engineer us into that direction. And I do think, despite my views on Israel and us disagreeing, it's probably almost more important to talk to the Israeli protesters about safeguarding themselves against advocating for that. Hey, you don't support this. This is a bad idea. I know anti-Semitism is bad. We agree. We have the same views on Israel. You cannot use whatever crisis happens to justify censorship, free speech, violently mistreating protesters. You cannot do that. If you believe in God strongly enough, if you have that much faith in your religion,
that's why you catch them on the mandate question, right? All right, you told them, you say, hey, right, you're going to use the COVID-19 to justify mandates? No, you can't do that. And they use every crisis to justify censorship, mandates, control, the whole 9 yards.
I actually have a lot more footage. I got to get that sent over, and I'm going to try to post it. But it also gets overwhelming, man. And we live in such a clickbaity culture that the only thing, all that matters is you posting 30-second clips. That's all people can pay attention to. You try to make an actual movie. I tried this once. I made an actual 9-minute long mini movie talking to people about the crisis, and I thought it was very fair.
Okay.
Did I maybe I sent it to you, maybe I didn't.
No, I never saw it.
But
I would watch it.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is that when I see a 30-second clip, I want to see more.
Yeah.
So there are people like this. The one of the 5 people. I'm one of those 1 of 5 people. When I saw that video with you and that dude, I want to see more. I wanted to see the whole fucking rally. I would have that. To me, that's like crack.
I have.
Give me more. Talking to people at a rally, I love it.
Nobody wanted to talk to me.
I don't know why. I would have loved. You seem very fair.
No, but I'm fair. That's what I'm saying. When I tried to talk to people, when I was asking people about what was going on, I didn't argue any Israeli point. I didn't even share my viewpoints with these about people about Israel. I just said, hey, how do you feel about Joe Biden?
Yeah. Do
you think we should tax the billionaires, even though our taxes are going to fund these wars? Hey, how do you feel about vaccine mandates? Hey, do you think that the way the Canadian truckers was treated was equally as horrifying as the way these people are treated? How do you feel about what happened to people on January 6th? I know you didn't vote for Trump. I'm not voting for Trump. This is not about that. A lot of the people on J6, they actively supported the Patriot Act back in 2004. This is the only reason why I'm asking this question. I think it's important to break the fourth wall. That's all. Nobody wanted to talk. A few people that didn't even want to be put on film. So there is
got a
actual
lot of
elements
immature
it's also these organizations that run these protests are so they're so regimented and behave in such an authoritarian cult-like manner that you can't what do you do in that set of circumstances? And those organizations that have this type of sway and that can put these rallies on, they do get large amounts of funding from people like George Soros, who are weaponizing this organization to destabilize this country and create anti-Western values. And then the Israeli side is getting weaponized to manufacture consent for hate speech laws and financial censorship. So I think that you want to talk to both sides about the concerns that you share, and each side you talk to a little bit differently because the concerns facing each side are just different concerns.
Yeah. Well, when a lot of things, you get a whole array of people that go out there and stuff. People talk about the Black Lives Matter rallies and whatnot, and the burning down your city. It's I've been to about fucking 20 Black Lives Matter rallies, okay? And one time that I saw some violence or something went on, 2 times, right? It was somebody who wasn't even part of the protest. It was a homeless guy who joined on. He threw a fucking skateboard through a cop's thing. But that's what you're going to get with these situations. You're going to also get people who are going to try to take advantage of this and say, I'm going to blend in and act like I'm a protester and then go loot, right? You know, I didn't see crazy
I saw
damage.
a lot of that the first day of BLM. I was pettycapping it, and we saw looting. We just saw people coming into the store.
Because people take
thousands
advantage,
of people just fucking looted the
But
shoe
I've
store
also
and stuff.
seen in L.A. that I remember these guys were trying to loot a freaking store, and all the Black Lives Matter people, they were going in, they were stopping them. It was like, no. They were trying to stop them from going in because they understood that they were infiltrated. That's why Antifa, and I got a lot of slack from people said, why don't you like Antifa? I'm like, because it's a tactic. You're having people come in with masks and whatnot. Feds are going to come in. They're going to cause problems. And all of a sudden we see bricks laying around everywhere. It's like,
it isn't real. It's very co-opted.
Yeah.
I think if these protesters were smart, they would actually say, no, don't put a mask on because you want to make sure that you can spot a suspicious character.
Absolutely. And a lot of times, a lot of these Black Lives Matter leaders and people at the top over there were like, this guy's bad, that guy's bad, keep an eye on him. They didn't want to. They honestly believe in that, whether you believe them or not. They believed out there. The majority of the reasons why they're out there is because they believe their lives were not their lives were not on an equal basis of a white person, right? Their lives weren't equally at risk. Their lives were a lot more at risk. They believed that. That's why they were out there. That's why they were protesting. That's the majority of the people who went to those rallies. You're always going to get bad people go in there and start bad things, whatnot. You can't condemn the whole rally. It's stupid. Just like you can't condemn what's going on with the Palestinian rallies and stuff. What Governor Abbott's doing is so fucking stupid right now. You're doing the same thing that's done to you.
Well,
And let me tell you something.
A more heavy-handed approach.
And
here's the thing too. Actually,
yeah.
I want to say something because a lot of people on the right are saying, "Oh yeah, look this is how the police brutalized guys protesters for Israel. They didn't do this during 2020." And I'm like, actually, if you saw videos from 2020, they did the exact same fucking thing. It's just that there were more people that were protesting in 2020. The groups had a lot more funding. There was more at stake because they wanted to get rid of Donald Trump, and and when this was taking place in Democrat and liberal cities, there was a direct, especially in swing states, there was a direct incentive to continue destroying these cities for as long as possible to create as much misery as they could so that people would get Trump out of office and install the regime that they wanted to install. Even though Trump is a regime puppet too, it's still
weird.
It's a different type of regime, and it's a different way to exert control over people. So when people say, "Oh yeah, look, they brutalized the anti-Israel protesters, but they let BLM do whatever they wanted," I'm like, no, that's actually that actually isn't true, and that's a completely bad faith take because they were doing the exact same thing to the BLM protesters in 2020. It's just that there were a lot more of them, and the BLM protesters did a lot more damage than the Palestinian protesters because it was the Palestinian protesters are all just woke college kids, right? And the BLM protesters were guys that were a lot of them were just straight out of jail, just hood motherfuckers that took advantage of the protests, and the trust fund kids didn't care at all, and they just let it happen.
Like I said, there's always bad elements that kind of blend into these protests, whatnot. But at the end of the day, we have to find a way that we can always constantly protest. What Governor Abbott did was stupid. You know what I'm saying?
Because they'll turn it back to you.
Speech.
They'll turn it back to you with protesting lockdowns
Exactly.
or something else. Like, I don't think that
the altruistic king is going to die, and whoever's going to take his place is going to when centralized control. So when you make a law like you're doing right now, the next person who gets in charge is going to take advantage of it.
Yeah,
and
which is why you shouldn't prosecute Trump because then it'll just lead to prosecuting.
Oh, it's
everybody
terrible.
Even though I don't even like Trump, like I'm not voting for him. I think he's such a clown. And
they're politically motivated though these things, but are they done on
actually,
purpose though?
Yes.
To victimize him though, to make him look good? Because every single time they charge him with something, his base grows.
You think
it's counterproductive to what they're doing? It's almost like they're doing it on purpose now.
I almost feel as though they wanted to win because these people at the New World Order. This is why I like DeSantis actually over Trump because, and look, man, you could disagree with like how he communicates, how he speaks, because he does have the personality of like a cardboard box, right? But my thing is that these people use crisis after crisis to create their New World Order. And if there's one thing that DeSantis was good at, it was managing disasters. He was compared to everybody else that was in office. We
talked about this before.
Did we?
Me and Eric were talking about this in the car and stuff. He still needed to get pushed. I have a video of DeSantis coming out and saying you need to go get vaccinated because most of the people that are in the hospital are either vaccinated or partially vaccinated, and you can't lump that together. And then somebody came along. It's like, hey man, this would be politically advantageous if you're the first one to say end the lockdowns, don't force mandates, don't force masks. You're gonna come out looking like a genius. And then all of a sudden he did.
Well, good, he did it. He still did it, and he listened to it.
But I mean, but that's one
to him
thing
for listening. And you know what?
Yeah,
It takes
but
a
he's
good
also
leader to
this-
know how to
yeah.
listen to the right people.
But
So
there's other things that we can go after DeSantis for too as well. He made it a crime once again. He in Florida. I don't know the exact law in front of me.
I read the
but
law.
To
It's not,
criticize
dude.
Israel,
I read the law.
It is a censorship law.
I read the law, and like the parameters for what they consider bad are like, don't be walking around with full-blown Nazi signs and like physically attacking people and doing it. It's very clear as to what there's no gray area as to how that can be interpreted.
But it's like a hate speech, and you can say the hatest speech in the world that's condemning. You have to. I mean, it's the same avenue. If you do that law for Israeli citizens, you got to do it for every other citizens. Make a law that you can't go into a pasta house and throw pizza on the ground and rub it in the face. If you use ranch dressing on your pizza, that you should be arrested or something. You know what I'm saying? It's just the same
I don't
thing.
know. I think that people are overreacting. I think, look, nobody likes.
It was
hate
a bad
speech
law.
laws.
You should never.
Nobody likes them, but if you actually read the text of the bill, it's not like as crazy as people.
No,
make
it's
it out
not, and you're absolutely
That's all
right.
I'm
But
saying,
it's still
it's not.
opening up Pandora's back. It's still within the same spirit. It's still an anti-speech law. It's still censorship.
It's still
you
a lot
shouldn't
better.
do that.
It's still a much better choice.
Yeah.
He's still a much better choice for the Republican nomination.
Then
To,
Donald Trump.
yeah, I still think he was a better choice.
He's also, when it comes to Latin America, he is awful. I can't stand him. He'll go invade Cuba tomorrow. I mean, he's just terrible. I mean,
Donald Trump did have better foreign policy.
Well, I mean, Donald Trump's foreign policy in Latin America
was
sucks too, so I don't want to get away from that. I mean, it's probably a little bit better than DeSantis, but DeSantis kind of was flip-floppy on the whole Ukraine situation. And
I know
at the end of the
DeSantis
day,
is pro-Bitcoin, and I knew that DeSantis was banning central bank digital currencies. I mean, it doesn't matter. We're arguing about somebody that's not going to be president anyway. But he was like, he understands digital assets better than Donald Trump. And one of the things that they're going to try to do when Trump gets in office is probably launch some kind of a cyber attack, blame it on Trump, and then really try to
clamp down.
Yeah.
Solar winds.
Yeah. I don't like. I feel as though somebody like a DeSantis and even a Kennedy would have their wits about them better to be more on top of that type of a situation.
Kennedy is almost like is a great candidate aside from that one big piece, and the only problem about that is the fact that I don't think he's wrong. A lot of people feel he's compromised, and when you're compromised, that means everything's off the table.
But
because they can move you on anything.
Everybody likes to say that everybody is compromised because it's a lot easier.
I don't know. I'm not totally believe like when it comes to like Dr. Cornel West. I don't believe he's compromised. I believe he's just wrong about a lot of things. I believe his approach is wrong. I don't believe he has
he doesn't
a
have
populist
enough influence
message.
to
But
be
I don't believe he's
compromised,
compromised.
He also doesn't. He also isn't like good at running a campaign. He also doesn't have the charisma. Anybody who's charismatic and is able to like hold their own on long form podcasts for hours and hours and reach a wider audience is always going to be told that they're compromised. People are probably going to say that I'm compromised because I have a just different viewpoint about Israel than you do, right? People are like, you Zionists.
I don't know. I think you are the least compromised person I've ever met who has that position on Israel. Everything you believe, you back up with. I don't agree with it and stuff like that. But you have the most nuanced, open opinion. It's like you've said stuff that a lot of people who are supporting Palestine would agree with right now. You talk back against the settlements. You talked back against about killing civilians. I mean, so no, I believe you're the least compromised person that I've met, at least. So that's why I'm here with you today.
No, I appreciate that. But I'm saying that's like
everybody's compromised in a way. Yeah.
Everybody's always compromised. Like no one's ever going to be perfect, and people demand. The problem is this, right? Everybody demands perfection about everybody, right? But then anytime Donald Trump does anything that gets called into question, they just brush it off and forget about it. That feels like cult behavior, and I think that's a problem that should
You mean his supporters, his base?
Yeah.
Operation Warp Speed for one thing, right? Like the way he let his executive order
expanding the FBI
changed.
building, throwing his own protesters under the bus. Owen Schroeder, like they didn't get any help when he was facing jail time. Like it's just
the CARES Act. He signed that shit. That red-haired.
Julian Assange got arrested under Trump's presidency.
Yeah, they planned to execute him under his presidency.
You put Mike Pompeo in charge of what?
That satanic blob of Jello. Yeah,
Homeland Security. Like you're draining the swamp. Like you literally made the swamp that much worse. And this
John
is a
Bolton?
person who's shown no accountability for any mistakes that he made while in office. Like I don't want him to win. I don't want to vote for him. Right, but when Biden's doing 45% capital gains tax and 25% unrealized capital gains, which is just another way to loot the treasury, and then they're trying to ban financial privacy. It's like, dude, come on. Like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you making me have to vote for somebody that I don't want to vote for? Because this is like egregiously anti-American. What the Biden administration is doing.
Yeah,
it's un-left, it's un-right, it's un-American, and it is what people in dictatorships do, and people aren't realizing that because it's never been done before, and we're in a digital age.
Well, if I had a gun to my head and I had to vote for either Donald Trump or Joe Biden, I would definitely vote for Donald Trump.
Yeah, same here. Gun to my head, and I couldn't choose Kennedy. Yeah, gun to my head. I don't think there's a choice.
Yeah. You're gonna vote for Kennedy, probably, huh?
I'm gonna vote for Kennedy.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. You know,
I don't care. At this point, I'm voting for Kennedy, and I'm in Texas, and it's fine.
it really does suck because he did smash the anti-establishment movement right in half. There were so many of us who like the anti-imperialist movement,
but here's
and
the thing too, man.
he just smashed it right in fucking half.
Stop! It's such bullshit, dude. I hate this stuff. Here's why, man.
He smashed it in half, brother.
It's retarded. It's not. It's missing the.
It's not that it's retarded. A lot of people, like I said, they just won't support him anymore. There's red lines.
Dumb.
No, it's not because you can't be the. And can I explain why real quick?
Sure,
okay, it's not dumb. I've not said that anything that you've said is stupid or dumb, Alex.
I never said.
I'm gonna make you go get that. You just did.
I'm sorry.
You just did. We got it on camera right there.
Okay.
All right. Let me tell you why it's not dumb. You can disagree. Okay. You cannot be the pro-peace candidate if you're going to be a pro-Zionist because it spins out of control.
Stop. Putting the money on a block, putting our expenditures on the blockchain ensures that you actually do become a pro-peace candidate because we get to see what our money is spent on, and we see that we're spending it.
Finish.
Sorry,
I'm not. You're telling me about an idea that I talked about on a show the other day. I think it's amazing.
Okay, sorry.
I'm an election integrity activist. The one thing we're fighting for, the one thing we don't have in our elections out here is transparency. It starts there. We have none of it.
Okay.
It's done in the dark. It's counted in the dark. It's secret fucking software, secret companies.
Okay.
I love the idea, Alex.
Sure.
Let me explain to you why.
I'm sorry. All right.
Still, regardless. No, I love it, baby. I love it.
Right.
But regardless, why you cannot be a pro-peace candidate if you're going to be for the state of Israel because it's going to spin out of control. Then his rhetoric changed very, very quickly. Then you have to be anti-Iran. Then you have to be anti-China. He even said stuff about Venezuela. It spins out of control. If you back Israel, then you have to back Israel against Iran. If you back Israel against Iran, then you have to back Israel against Russia, against China. It spins out of control. So therefore, you cannot be a pro-peace candidate. And here's the thing: had Kennedy come out October 7th, and that day, I swear to God to you, Alex, I was like, please, somebody take Kennedy's phone. At that moment in time, I still supported him. I was ready to vote for him. I was excited about him. I love the ideas and the talk coming to the table. There's so many things to like about this fucking dude, right? Okay. I said, somebody take away his phone. Sure enough, he didn't take away his phone. And right then and there, so many people were like, goodbye. See ya. Peace. Done. Not even interested in what you have to say anymore. Don't want to listen to you anymore. He could have said, listen, I am for the state of Israel. They have a right to exist, but we need a ceasefire today. And he played that role. He would have still had his support. He condoned the carpet bombing. He was like, they have to do this. And people were like, oh, no. So listen, I don't hold that against people who have that same feeling as me, that that's the red line, that you can't do it anymore. That's where I lost them. That's where a lot of people lost them. And there's a lot of people like me who were part of this anti-establishment movement, anti-imperialist, who were against the COVID protocols, who didn't take the clot shot, who didn't agree with the mandates, who are now like, screw you, bro. A lot of those people I met at Defeat the Mandates in D.C., where they were anti-imperialists at an anti-mandate rally, and he fucking sang. He stole the show. But I'm so sorry, but that one issue right there is an important issue. And like I said, people feel he's compromised. They don't feel he's wrong. And if you're compromised on that issue, where a lot of people think that that's the globalists controlling those issues, then you're compromised on everything. Go ahead.
Okay, let's unpack this a little bit.
Yes.
All right. Before this happened, right? A couple months before this happened, he was also being accused of becoming a raging anti-Semite. Do you remember that? When he mentioned...
I know. I remember that with the whole Debbie Wasserman Schultz hearing. It was so stupid.
No, not that. With when he said about weaponized viruses, about how these viruses target...
Yes, that was the whole thing with Debbie Wasserman Schultz. They all brought him to Congress. They all taken turns saying he's an anti-Semite.
Okay. All right. Shortly thereafter, he winds up being friends with Rabbi Shmuley.
Yeah.
Okay. And at first, I liked Rabbi Shmuley. I'm like, oh, I love that this Jewish rabbi's coming to bat for RFK Jr. This is actually a really good thing. I think this is awesome. I really like this guy, and he's also very charismatic at first. At first,
you don't know Shmuley.
Well, now the more you know him.
At first to us, but if you knew about that guy in Hollywood for a while, you know who he is. But that's okay.
Okay, but I didn't pay that much attention to him, right? But at first, I'm like, oh, I like this guy. This guy's cool. Like he's very very charismatic, very very lively, very just I think this is great. This is awesome that he's like really helping out RFK Jr. and all this stuff, right? The way he's being right now, he's lost his fucking marbles. But I think that and the timing of what happened right before that could have possibly played a role. I think that you can't win. You still cannot win despite, operate from a lens of ideological purity. Yeah. You can't win an election without the support of the Jewish community. Being branded an anti-Semite is the kiss of death in politics. So yes, having to support Israel is just something that everybody has to do that's politically expedient. It is what it is. AIPAC is a very powerful lobbying group. And look, so is the NRA. And just because you're a powerful lobbying group doesn't mean that you're not also getting a lot of support from individuals, but it's a powerful lobbying group.
Yeah.
And that's what it is.
Yeah.
And you're making a political decision. You've probably spent more time hanging out and socializing with Jews who have ties to Israel than people who have ties to Gaza.
Yeah.
Growing up in those circles, so you're going to be wanting to.
Your wife's also in Hollywood, and there's a lot of
Larry. You're friends with Larry David.
Yeah.
So I don't think that it's necessarily like, oh, he's compromised. I think it's just more like, hey, man, these are just the circumstances that were put in front of you, and you probably and I do think he actually is genuine about this because you grew up probably around a lot of Jewish people. They probably treated him very nicely. You're friends with a lot of people in Hollywood who happen to be Jews. Not everyone in Hollywood is bad. And then this translates to, hey, we're gonna this is the stand I'm gonna take because my friends are supporting this and I've heard their stories. I don't think it's like, they caught RFK Jr. molesting a kid or eating babies on
No, but he was a sect addict. I have a lot of people who dove into his things. They understand that. There's this whole diary story.
But he's already admitted that. He's already come to terms and said, hey, everything that's happened to me, I did this. I've recovered. And he's actually been very transparent about that. And Donald Trump moved the embassy to Jerusalem, so he was actually more of a Zionist than
any president, technically.
He's actually the most pro-Israel president.
Beautiful Israel.
So you want to talk about that? And then Joe Biden.
I am a Zionist.
He's not. No, Joe Biden's not even pro-Israel or pro-Palestine. He's pro-war.
Yeah,
which is even worse.
Well,
it's actually worse. It's actually worse because Joe Biden's pro-war going on indefinitely. At least Trump has a side, and at least RFK Jr. Is. I really do believe that he was going about this because he just actually believes what he's going about it, and I think that you can justify why he genuinely believed it.
Okay, let me just piggyback on that really quickly because I don't know if you know this, and I felt the same way of that until after October 7th and that happened. I felt the same way. He's married to Cheryl Hines. She's plugged into Hollywood. He probably doesn't want his wife to suffer for his decisions. If he talks critical of Israel, they can punish her instead. Like, I really thought a lot of those things there. He grew up around a lot of people, but there's also the situation when you look back at JFK and David Ben-Gurion. And there's a series of letters out there. And if you get a chance to read these letters, read these letters. Pretty much JFK, and this is at a time where it seemed like the United States was telling Israel more what they can do rather than Israel telling the United States what they're going to do, right?
Sure.
And JFK was telling.
Also talking about how Robert Maxwell put backdoors.
Let me finish really quickly because this is not even on the
agenda. Okay.
Well, it's not even on the conspiracy theory thing. This is like on a geopolitical way. David Ben-Gurion, right, was the first prime minister of Israel. He was doing nuclear testing, and JFK kept writing him letters. Listen, I'm trying to ban nuclear weapons testing. This is right after we dropped an atomic bomb. It was in the 60s. He was trying to do that, and he pretty much forced David Ben-Gurion to resign. Okay, there's a theory that David Ben-Gurion, who was tied to the Mossad, as he had created it as one of the first, prime ministers of Israel, and the Mossad was very pissed off. Lucky Luciano, right, had the second most stake in Cuba at the time of the revolution. You know who had the first most stake? Meyer Lansky, a Jewish guy, tied to David Ben-Gurion, tied to the Mossad. Hold on, let me just say this and stuff. So in those letters, you can see where JFK forces David Ben-Gurion to resign, there could be some type of payback, and a lot of people believe the Mossad had a lot to do. So you could see that RFK can be in that same position where, dude, I don't want to be Mossaded just like my uncle over here, just like my father, right? So there's those reasons right there where people can believe other things. And what I'm just saying is the door is open to believe in whatever you want to believe. There are reasons behind everything. What you just said is how I felt up until October 7th. Okay. So there's a lot more deep to it. And I don't know if you know this really quickly, but I'm the one, I'm going to confess right now, I hope I don't upset you. Right after he had made that tweet from Roger Waters supporting him, and then he took the tweet down because he got pressure from his Jewish friends. You remember the whole Roger Waters thing?
Yeah, I do remember that.
So I went up to New Hampshire while he was addressing the Senate, and we had a press conference. And I asked him, I'm like, hey, man, there was a tweet there. I'm calling it the tweet heard around the world because you put it up and you took it down. And this is when this dude was getting on fire. Dennis Kucinich was standing right behind him.
Yeah.
And I said, give us your stance on Israel and Palestine. And you can see the faces drop. And this is the first one. And when he made that statement about Israel, and I said, and the Palestinians, and then he finished up the Palestinians. By the way, Rabbi Shmuley used that tweet. He clipped off what his response was with the Palestinians right there, and he just used what he said about Israel. And that was before they went and said, this guy's not an anti-Semite. Look at what he's saying, stuff like that.
I think
so I started the shitstorm when it came to the Israel-Palestine situation right here. I don't even think you even know that.
Well,
and I'm confessing you today.
That's fine.
Right?
That's fine.
So believe you me, and I was supporting him at that time.
Okay, but dude, here's the thing, too. When it comes to talking about the Israel-Palestine thing, it's a losing issue no matter what. Okay? No matter what.
Well, what are we going to do?
Well,
That
hold on, let me talk
is
about
the
this.
question,
We're talking about
right?
presidential candidates and support for a president. Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Oh, you want to still stay on the Kennedy train? I got you.
We're talking. No, but look, man.
Yeah.
I think the fact that he's actually talking about this at all and sharing his stances and going on podcasts where he's being actively challenged, like talking to Dave Smith or talking to Clint Russell or talking to all these other people about this issue.
He won't give me my interview.
Well, he should.
He was pissed off.
But he also did.
Communications
okay,
director.
but he also did the. Yeah, he's also done the Hill. He's done a lot of. He's talked to Breonna Jordan. He's talked to a lot of people that have very different viewpoints about him. Okay. There's no other president that's willing to even go on and entertain the opposing viewpoints and allow them to talk and have a nuanced discussion. The only way through peace, nuanced discussions are how you actually get peace. The fact that he's willing to put the money on the blockchain and have a nuanced discussion means that a Kennedy presidency is actually the best hope for peace compared to all of the three other choices. Even if you disagree with his stances, this is my view, and that's an objective fact. Another thing.
Yeah.
Oh wait, hold on. Another thing.
I don't begrudge you for that, though.
Okay.
You understand that, right?
No, I know.
Yeah.
I know. Another thing.
I would begrudge you if you were going to fucking support Joe Biden. I don't even begrudge you that much. A little bit if you supported Trump, you know. But
okay.
Good.
Another thing too about this thing about if they kill, like, this is why I don't buy the whole Mossad theory. Okay, and if he was worried about being Mossaded or assassinated or anything like this, he could have just literally followed the cookie cutter route and just walked the carpet and the golden path that was laid out to him without any objection. The fact that he fought against the pharmaceutical companies, the fact that he filed lawsuits against Monsanto and won, the fact that he was the most censored person on the internet for 20 plus years and only didn't start getting a voice until very recently when he decided to declare candidacy for president. I think that he already knew what was at stake, and it wouldn't make any sense for him to compromise himself now when he never compromised himself for 20 plus years. I don't. It's a hard for me. That is a hard theory for me to buy. Yeah. Just because if that were true, I'd be more willing to buy the theory of like someone like Vivek Ramaswamy being compromised, coming in out of nowhere, saying everything that you want to hear without ever having to test it himself. Even though I love Vivek, Kennedy spent 20 plus years, being the most censored man in America, being demonized, pilloried, dragged over the coals by everybody. I mean, you already dealt with being like, it wouldn't make any sense to just like capitulate now. That just doesn't make it. Just seems odd, right?
Well, I gave you my theory about what it could be. I said that he smashed the anti-establishment movement in half.
Sure, that's what I'm saying. Like,
so that's why he could be that. He could be a Judas goat. That's something that Sam Husseini has written about too as well, that he's meant to come in to just do exactly that. Smash that anti-establishment movement in half. And another question really quickly. I mean, is he going to take more votes away from Biden or take more votes away from Trump? It doesn't make a difference anyways because our elections are screwed. You know that, right?
I actually want to talk about that.
Fraudulent elections out there.
This is how I want to wrap up and talk about the elections. Okay.
There's an Amber Alert.
Okay. Who do you think he's going to take more votes away from?
I actually think it's going to be Biden. And I'll tell you why.
Sure.
Yeah, there are some issues, affirmative action, his stance on race, his stance on...
That's how you take votes away from Biden.
Yes, this is votes away from Biden, right? The areas where, like, that he can take votes away from Biden. And the Second Amendment, a lot of people say that he's still wishy-washy. He said he would sign an assault weapons ban if it came to him. And that's just him saying he would sign that. That doesn't mean he wants that. In fact, I think he's a little bit more open.
He said if we could get a consensus, like a fair consensus.
He would sign it. He would sign. I don't think he would want to, but
there would never be a fair. But that was actually just a smart political move, because he knows that there'll never be a consensus, so it doesn't matter.
But you know that people like
there's
people like Clint Russell and there's people like Dave Smith who got really mad after he was at Porkfest, and then
these
he's kind of
also.
Okay, but 1 second. Let me just get to my point because I don't want to lose my chain of thought. Because you're saying whose votes he's going to take away from more. I think by fault, the fact that there's so many Democrats out there, old school Democrats, the ones in the shadows, the ones you don't see on TV, that are just done with this Democratic Party. They're looking for some type of options. They're like, all right, I'll take the good with the bad. They called him a quack. I took the jab. I believe that we should have been safe with it, but I'll deal with that and stuff like that because he's good on some other issues, and they'll take Kennedy. There's way more people. The Trump people, they're way more cultish. The right is just way more, I don't want to say they're more cultish but they're way more into their candidate than they are the left.
They are. That's the truth.
Yeah.
Yes,
the right is more representative of conservative values than the left is more representative of liberal values.
Yes.
It's been completely changed because we were the original anti-imperialist, freedom of speech, freedom of press. We were the ones that you say whatever you want as long as you're not inciting violence. That was what the left was all about.
Yes.
And now it's gone. Now it's completely been co-opted and changed. So I do believe he'll pull away from the left more than he will pull away from the right. However, the people, the real hardcore COVIDians, right? The ones who want real fucking justice for what they did to us in society. They want to see people pay a price, okay? They'll vote for Kennedy, and they would have originally voted for Trump because Trump was not as pro-vaccine.
But there's also not as many hardcore COVIDians on the Trump side as people think.
Yeah. They've matriculated to the Kennedy side. The freedom movement is its own fucking thing that a lot of people, and it's been a lot more silent right now because it's not in the news. It's not being talked about as much. I haven't done shows about it as much and stuff like that.
Well, it's because we're destroying ourselves. It's not so much Kennedy. We're destroying ourselves arguing about Nala Ray and porn stars and calendars and engagement farming and making everything into a conspiracy theory when it isn't. And there's only a few basic things that we just got to pay attention to, and that's it. And people have become enamored with getting Elon bucks on Twitter and becoming stars in the mainstream alternative media than they actually are about the mission at hand. That's what the big psyop is. It's not Kennedy. It's the psyop.
No, I know. I hear you. I listen, dude. I'm not saying that for sure he is. I'm saying there's reason to believe that. There are theories out there. So, and I tell you right now, I don't know what to believe when it comes to anything.
Yeah.
So I'm really glad we didn't get just 25 minutes. Look what we got.
I know, we talked a lot.
25 minutes? It felt like we just started 5 minutes ago because we got so much goddamn things to say.
I really appreciate my Gary. Shout out Gary, baby. Let's go.
Maybe we have to move. Maybe I have to move to Austin. Let's go get a studio and fucking do a morning, show.
Dude, come to
I do a show with you, man. Like, cause I love the whole opposites thing. For me, it's one of the most important things to do because cancel culture, right? It's the biggest weapon the elites have. It's divide and conquer. Don't talk to people who think differently than you. Shame them. Cancel them. That's awful. That's the beginning of the destruction of America. Where we cancel each other.
That's why people get...
So we feel differently, but we can sit down and have an awesome fucking conversation all the time, and people can learn from it.
Yes.
Agree, disagree. This is what we need.
That's what I tried to do with my original Convos in the Petty Camp podcast. And I was doing that for a minute, but social media fucks with the algorithm.
Big time.
They don't want those discussions brought to a large scale, and that's why whenever I go troll a city council meeting or do stunts at these protests, that gets all the views, but then these conversations don't. That gets so
because they like the divisiveness.
Yeah, it's so aggravating and annoying, and I'm just like, well, you know what? Go get the viral tweet. Then you go on the podcast, and then you share your views when you go on the podcast. That's how I look at it. I was like, all right, do the inflammatory video, and then every couple of inflammatory every 3 to 5 inflammatory videos that you make probably equals 1 podcast appearance. Yeah. That's kind of like the math that I came up with. So I'm like, all right, you know what? If you want to spread the right message, you have to make the inflammatory videos just because that's the dinner, and then the podcast and the shows are the dessert. Yeah. Well, but you can't. But that's just where we're at.
There is another avenue. You can be famous in a different area and still then do this work. So maybe if you became a famous porn star, we can just do this show and get a lot more views. You're
right, dude. Fast.
Alex Strenger from Fanbus is going to talk about the Israel-Palestine situation. I'm watching that.
I know, amazing. So okay. So here's the thing, right? Let's talk about the voting. Okay.
That's what I'm here for. Not here. I'm saying it's why I'm here in Austin, right? So,
do you think 2020 was a legitimate election?
Nope.
So you think it was actual voter on-chain?
Not voter fraud, election fraud.
What's the difference?
Voter fraud is the individual committing a fraud in the system right now.
Okay.
Election fraud is an entity, a body.
Sure.
It was a group. It wasn't the Democrats. It was the establishment because Joe Biden got the top of the ticket and the Republicans got the coattails. All your Mitch McConnells, all your Lindsey Grahams, all Mitt Romneys, they were protected in the situation too as well, so they went along with it. It wasn't left versus right. It was top versus down. Established.
I hate left-right paradigm. I hate this. I went on Harrison Smith show and said that right off the bat.
There were mathematical impossibilities that came in the middle of the night. Mathematical impossibilities. People use the term anomaly, and what really disgusted me is that they had this kind of like dumb and dumber kind of mentality. I don't know if you remember when Jim Carrey's character goes, "Mary, I really like you. What are the odds of me and you come together? Me and 1 in 10, 1 in 100, 1 in 1,000, 1 in a million? Just give it to me." And she's like, 1 in a million. And he goes, "So you're still saying there's a chance?" That's what people took these anomalies at that were so far off in Georgia, in Pennsylvania, in Wisconsin, in Nevada. And they were like, well, it's just an anomaly. It can still happen. I'm like, dude, it's a mathematical impossibility. There's no way that could happen. And they illegally changed laws. Only the state legislation can change election laws. Election officials change laws. Mass mail-out ballots is what killed the 2020 election. You don't know where these ballots are coming from. People don't even know who make their ballots. I ask them all the time, who makes your ballot? Do you know who makes your ballot here in Austin? Nobody knows who makes your ballot. Well, whoever signs the contract with that contractor, that's who that contractor works for. So in a lot of states like California and stuff, and this is how the grassroots never gets anything. The Nancy Pelosi, Congress has a 14% approval rate, but they have an 85% retention rate. That doesn't make sense. Why? Because they have their elections fixed in the United States. And when you go to other countries like Nicaragua, Colombia, Peru, Honduras, you see fair elections in front of your face where the transparency is there. Everything happens in the purview of the people. And in those countries in which we say they're like, they're dog and pony elections, pantomime elections is what Joe Biden called the Nicaraguan elections. No, this is ridiculous. We have a complete system where we're operating with no transparency, in the dark, and we have to have blind faith. And they don't have no way to audit the election, so I can't prove it's fixed, but you can't prove it's real.
Okay. That actually makes a lot of sense.
Yes.
I think that in order to get away with fraud, there needs to be a margin of fraud, and there also has to be enough of a justification so that people will look at you like you're crazy for even alleging fraud. Yeah. The political climate in 2020, the divisiveness and anger directed towards Donald Trump and the amount of people that were protesting showed so much visceral hatred to Trump that you can logically, as an outside observer, say, no, Trump lost. Look at how many people hated him. It's obvious. But no, I'm saying the outside normie person said this, okay? Right now in 2024, I don't think that the number, like, in order to pull off any kind of fraud, people are only going to do that if they can get away with it. With how things are right now in this country, with the political landscape changing, I don't see there being any ability to get away with any kind of voter fraud because nobody in the left is voting for Biden. Black people in the hood are openly voting for Trump. Enough people get that on video. You can only cheat if there is a way in which you can get away with it. I don't see a path to getting away with that unless
Okay.
Unless you just get all the illegal immigrants who came here to just start voting.
Well, they don't vote. They don't vote in mass, and that's another thing. This is where the right gets it wrong because illegal immigrants do not vote in mass. I've never seen, and I've analyzed a lot of elections over a long time. Right. First of all, they're not even allowed to vote in national elections. They're only allowed to vote in some local elections.
Yeah, sure.
And that's a theory once again to scapegoat the fucking immigrant instead of looking inside at your own systems. Here's the reason why they can cheat it again. A lot of the temporary rules during the COVID era, like mass mail-out ballots, proprietary software counting, they're permanent laws now. They're permanent laws in Nevada. They're permanent laws in Arizona. They're permanent laws in Wisconsin. They have these same fucking laws that are in play. So they can steal the election again tomorrow if they want to, brother.
All right. We got to continue to set a future episode and talk more about this. Pasta, how do we get a hold of you?
That's it. We're out. We're done. We just end the show like that.
That's a great way to end.
Hey, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
How do we get a hold of you?
Go to my Twitter, Yo Pasta. I got a new show, Pasta 2 Go, the number 2, on YouTube, Rumble, Twitter, Pasta to Go Show. Check us out, man. Thank you so much for having me on.
All right.